Shalom, shalom. I'd like to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone. Peace, blessing, and safety to all the Akim out there pushing this truth throughout the four corners of the earth, to the sincere believers out there. This is the brother Abadia coming back at you with another one. And this is going into you see the heading, woman fatally shot in Brampton Plaza parking lot identified by family. So yesterday evening, there was an Amber Alert sent out for a child who had been taken, and you know, this woman right here is the one who the child was taken from, and um it was the father. A woman who was, so let me read a little bit of this. A woman who was fatally shot in a plaza parking lot in Brampton on Tuesday afternoon has been identified by her family as 29-year-old Savannah Kula. Relatives have confirmed that Kula was a mother of 4 young children, 3 boys, a 1-year-old girl, who was subject of an Amber Alert on Tuesday afternoon, allegedly taken by her father, 38-year-old Anthony D. Shepard, following the shooting. So, the father took, basically, father shot the woman, shot the mother, took the youth, and fled. And this says, the baby was located safely a short time later after being dropped off with relatives in the Niagara region, police previously said. And says this Shepherd, who has also been identified as a suspect in Kula's murder, died following an interaction with police officers at a gas station in Niagara Falls early Wednesday morning, police confirmed. So this child was taken from the mother by the father. Father dropped off the youth at a relative's house. Police found the man early the next day and was shot and killed. And this is just judgment. This is judgment from Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. We don't know why the father took the youth away from the mother. Maybe the mom wasn't allowing the father to see the child. We don't know. We hear a lot of stories about that, where women will keep the child away from their father, simply because maybe the father has moved on, maybe they're not together, and women will do that. Brothers been through it. We've seen it many times. So this is Ecclesiasticus 39:28. There be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In the time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. So, this at the end of the day, this is spirits created for vengeance. The Lord used the father to take out his own woman, and then that man was then later taken out by police. So both parents, ended up going up into the spiritual world, and now you're gonna have these 4 children grow up with no mother, no father. That's at a very young age. And that's serious. That's serious judgment. Especially when you think about the times that we're coming into. Time of Jacob's trouble. Things are heating up. Prophecies are speeding up. And those 4 children, are going to be without their mother and their father. And it was their time. It was their time. This is Zephaniah 3:5. The just Lord in the midst thereof will not do iniquity every morning. Doeth he bring forth his judgment to light. Fleeth not, but the unjust know no shame. So every day Yahweh Shem Yahushai is bringing forth his judgment, and that's exactly why each and every day you gotta pray for that protection. You gotta pray for the mercy of Yahweh Hashem Yashai when you're out there, because you just never know. There's demons beyond people out there. And they're doing wickedness, and we hear about these stories all the time. You know, father will kill his wife. A man will kill his wife. A wife will kill her husband. You hear stories of children killing their parents. This is the time that we're living in. This is Matthew 24:12. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But in their So yeah, people are waxing cold out here. Um, well, and this happened in broad daylight too, because I remember seeing the notification come through on the phone. It must have been early yesterday afternoon, and and this woman was just shot and killed by the father of her own children. And we don't know the backstory. They're probably not going to speak about it. But a lot of these women out here, they they don't know their role. They don't they don't respect authority. A lot of women out here try keep children away from their father for the simple fact that maybe the man has moved on, or they're not together. And out of spitefulness, out of pettiness, women do that, where they don't allow a man to see their child, and then these men crash out. It's kind of that mind state where it's like, okay, if you won't let me see them, then I'm gonna delete you. And this is something that happens over and over and over and over again. Men, killing the mother of their children. See that a lot. You see it more. You see the men do it more than you see the women, doing it to the man. And it's because of what these women do. And society has set it up that way, where it gives the woman the power. And I'm not saying that that was the case in this incident, but you never know. This is Job 4:7. Remember, I pray thee, whoever perish being innocent, and where were the righteous cut off. So, a lot of people, they're gonna look at this story, they're gonna see this woman, see this young woman, 29, they're gonna say like, she didn't deserve it. But you just never know. It says no one perish being innocent. She could have been a wicked woman. Who knows? You see her here, doing that damn duck face. She's not an ugly woman, but you never know. She could have been very wicked, whether it's in this life or in the past life. But no one perishes being innocent. No one dies being innocent. The Lord is just in everything that He does, and in all His judgments. He is just. He is right. Hebrews 10:31. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living power. And both mother and father, fell into the hands of the Most High, and were taken out, back to back. That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, now these children are gonna grow up, and like I said, things like this happen all the time. This ain't new, and so things like this are just gonna happen more and more. As times get hard out here and people start to crash out, demons jump on people. People are gonna just do dumb shit. But it's all gonna be through the control of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So, that's why we got to pay attention out there. This is Ephesians 5:15. See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. And that's exactly what we're living in evil times. We're living in bad times where at any given moment, something could go down. It's not, and it could be in broad daylight. You know, where growing up, you have to worry about the nighttime, but now it's you got to worry about the day as well. Nothing, whether it's the morning, midday, whatever, doesn't matter. When judgment has to go out, it's gonna go out. So yeah, I just wanted to, seeing this alert yesterday, I had no idea. I had no idea that the mother was shot. I seen the brothers posted in the chat, so I just wanted to do a little quick vid on it because you know, these are the times we're living in. We're living in evil times. Where if a man will kill his own woman, who's to know what other things are gonna go down here? What happens when a man can't eat? What happens when a certain a man that has no shelter? And I'm saying this, uh, going towards the MOTB, that hour of temptation. What happens when the average person can no longer afford to feed their homes? They're gonna do whatever it is they gotta do to survive, and that's why you gotta walk circumspectly and just pay attention and always pray for protection. When we leave the house, when we get home, just every day, we gotta pray that the Lord will have mercy upon us and keep us sheltered, from evil. The Lord, like it says, the Lord is a righteous tower. So that's gonna do it for this video. I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakakwadash, and double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone, and peace, blessing, and safety to all the Akim out there pushing this truth throughout the four corners of the earth. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Until the next one, Shalom.